Hello and welcome. I hope you're doing everything you can to help the most vulnerable people on the planet. In today's exciting episode, oh my goodness, was I busy this week. I worked on 3 different jackets, and as you can see, well, the one on the right of the screen, you've already seen the foliage jacket, but this one I'm calling the vanilla pod jacket because of the beads that I used, but it's actually inspired by the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh. But yeah, I'll show you this one first.
It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket.
I can't quite believe I actually finished the foliage jacket, this one here. Can't believe I finished it in a week. But I have recently, it was only a few months ago that I made the other one. Like the first one, the forage jacket, did not look bright green. But when you compare it to the one that I just did, it looks so nice and bright. Anyway, let's get to the kimono jacket and the fringe on this. So if you want to know how to actually make the beading, I've got a separate video. It's just go to my YouTube page and type in tutorial. It's the only one with the word tutorial in the title. And in that video, you just see like my hands and the beads and the thread. It's super interesting. But if you want to know the nuts and bolts of actually threading the beads on, you can watch that one. This video is more about the creative process and what order I decided to do each thing in. So last week's video, I had done the first layer of the beading and parts of the second layer of the beading. And I think I'd done 3 layers around the neckline, 2 layers on the shoulders. I still hadn't worked out what I was going to do on the cuffs. And yeah, so here I am. At the start, I did the standard length, the standard design of the beading on the cuff, and it just did not look good. So I was like, oh, maybe I should modify it and shorten it because they're such big kimono sleeves and like the circumference is massive. So if you add 1 bead on that length, it ends up being quite heavy. So I ended up going with a shorter version of the design instead of this longer version here. So now I have to pull all this work off and do the shorter design again. Some of you get really upset when I pull, like I know with the Barbie jacket, the pink one with the hot pink one with the pink and red flowers on it, you got really upset when I pulled all the beads off that and remade it. But sometimes you just have to accept that, it's part of the design process. If something is wrong or not right, I just tend to accept that and not I don't know, some people just get really invested in bad energy and they're like, but it was energy that I expended. And I'm just sort of like, well, it helped me realize that the long fringe doesn't work. So it did serve its purpose. Now it's time to take it out and do something that's better suited. So that is my philosophy. So yeah, this is me taking more footage so that I can delay the process of carefully taking off all those beads. But I did eventually take off the long fringe and do this. So I'm really happy with this. It does look slightly brighter than the long fringe. The shortened version, the modified version, doesn't have as many of the it doesn't have as many transparent, like the transparent large pink bead. So yeah, it is a little bit brighter, but all in all, I think it's a pretty good match for the long one. And I was going to get the beads out and lay them out and show you this is the long one, this is the short version of the design. But I think if you paused it, took a screenshot, you could work out what the design was. I really I've never done one that's so, I think, like I've used multi-colours, lots of different colours in beaded fringe before, But this one, it's sort of very color coordinated, like the fish one, where I've got a Liberty flower print jacket, and I've used lots of beads with a fish bead at the bottom. That's all different colors, that one. But this one, it's sort of graded, like color coordinated. And I really, really like it. I think if I'd done this beading on one of the small fitted bolero jackets, I think that would have been amazing. I think it's a lot for a kimono jacket, but I do like it. Anyway, this is me showing you that I've done both of the cuffs. And yeah, so you just do layer 1 first, which is the one with the green and the teal beads on it, and then you go back and do the second layer, which has got the opaque pink oval faceted bead on it. So now that the cuffs are finally done, I still have to do the fourth layer around the neckline, and I have to finish the second layer around the bottom of the jacket. And this is me just on Instagram. I've got 3 different fashion accounts on Instagram because of course I do. No, I started with one in 2015. My writing was going well, and like producers, they just when you're a writer, they want to know who you are, so they Google you, they look you up on social media. And I didn't have any social media because I'm a victim of long-term stalking, and lawyers have said no, just stay off the internet as much as possible. So anyway, I started all these social media accounts, and people were like, you need to talk about politics on Twitter, you need to list some stuff on LinkedIn, but don't ever post there. And then Instagram, you have to do something about your hobbies so people can know what you're about. And so then, yeah, I got all these social media accounts, but I got a bit carried away with, I was like, what hobbies? Like, I like gardening and baking, but, I just bake cookies or a cake, and I didn't have a garden. I was living in an apartment, and I was like, that's great. What do you do? So I was like, well, I like high-end fashion. So I just reposted pictures, and yeah, and then I had one that I put bright pictures, and then I started another one just for jackets. And then I had all these, like, I'd collect all these high-end fashion pictures, and I'd post the bright ones on my Fin account, and then I'd post the jackets on the Perfect Jacket account. And then I had all these black and white and artsy photos left that didn't really suit either of the other 2 accounts. So I started a third one, which is 004 Couture, because 4 is my favorite number. And couture is high-end. The literal translation is elevated sewing. And I put all black and white artsy photos on that one. So yeah, 3 accounts, and they're all fashion. So if I'd actually thought about it, I would have like 3 different topics probably. But anyway, so I still have all 3 different accounts, and I still post all 3 different sorts of fashion images on each. And where was I going with that? Oh, and recently Meta has decided that in the last few months, Meta has decided that they don't like me anymore. So I think they grade people, they label people differently. And if you're a content creator, according to them, like, I've never monetized any of my accounts, but I think I was categorized as a creator. So I never got any ads before. But recently I've been getting some. And anyway, so for the first time ever, having had 3 fashion accounts for like a decade, I started getting ads. And yeah, I got a post for a fashion magazine. I suppose Cosmopolitan is a fashion magazine. Anyway, so after I finished the cuffs, then I finished the whole of the second layer on the bottom of the jacket, and I finished the 4th layer on the neckline. It's slightly modified. I missed 1 bead in the 4th layer so that it's a little bit shorter than layers 1, 2, and 3, just so that it sits nicer. And at this point, I've got out loads of different sequins because I want to do the design detail on the back. I want to use sequin for that because there's already enough weight with the beads. I don't need to use beads on it. Although I did think about using, that big jar that I've got for the cherry mosaic. I did think about using them to do the triangle on the back, but I decided to go with the red. As you can see, red. So it's red metallic sequins. It's sort of a silver sequin with dark red, cherry red sprayed on it. And it's about 1 centimetre or 10 millimetres wide. And I put down a big sequin, then a clear seed bead. And this is me trying to show it to you at night because it just glitters beautifully in the sun. But short of taking it outside and filming it outside, I can't really get it right. So this was me with the lights on, and then I turned the lights off and just used the light on the camera and tried to capture it with that. And this is it during the day. When you see, after I finish this jacket, I work on the cherry mosaic jacket for a bit, and this is me admiring the collar. Seriously, there's 4 layers of beads. It is it's really impressive, the amount of beads that I got around the neckline. It's like a really complicated necklace that's like attached to the actual jacket. It's pretty structurally, it's pretty amazing. And I also, as I said, I love the way the color is graded. I think it's really beautiful. And I think this design feature on the back is just perfect. I love how high and small it is. I think for this particular, like the print and the placement of the design, I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. If I had my time again, I'm not sure I'd use clear beads. I do think it looks good on this particular jacket, but just in general, I think red beads on red would look better. But yeah, anyway, so this is the watermelon one, and here I use sort of, I think this one looks better. You can't really notice the seed beads on top of, like, that I use to anchor the actual sequins. So yeah, I think next time I use sequins, this is me reminding you that I've got a separate tutorial that shows you how to do the actual beading. But yeah, I think you can see the clear beads that I use to anchor the sequins, which I think it works for this particular jacket because you can already see that there's so much beading. But just in general, I like the design feature on the back to just be like, oh, this is a triangle, rather than, oh, look at all the individual beads. So anyway, then I was really happy with the way that one turned out. And then I decided to do a little bit more on the cherry mosaic jacket, which is looking rather fabulous, if I do say so myself. The design of the neckline is a little bit squarish, which I don't like. If I had my time again, I would just do a standard sort of slightly higher neckline and also slightly fuller sleeves, just slightly fuller. But yeah, I really like this one. I think it's beautiful. Well, it will be eventually, and I've done a little bit more. I'm not convinced you can tell, but the white patches and the musky pink patches are slowly becoming smaller. And obviously I'm showing you the sections I did. So I did quite a bit more along the top and on parts of the sleeves. So I still haven't done the whole of the bottom of this sleeve here. You sort of have to do every second bead first, and then you go around and you fill in every other bead. I really like how the design feature turned out on the teal jacket with the pale pink roses. So I think I'm going to do red sequins on the back of this. But as I said, they're actually silver sequin with red sprayed on them. So I think I'll leave it until I've done the whole of the jacket, and then I'll add the sequins last bit. So anyway, I did a little bit of work on the cherry jacket and I was like, okay, I'm over using the small beading needles. I'll do something where I can use a regular size needle again. So this is ages ago, I made 6 jackets. 4 of them are red, 2 of them are green. This is the last of the green one. So the first green one, I ended up using the green ones. They're made out of suiting fabric and they're really, really dark green. And I originally made them because they were sort of a test because I've also got black suiting fabric. And I was just making them to see if they were suitable to hold all the beading of the vintage brooch jacket, but they're not quite strong enough for that. So I was like, I'm going to have to use them for something else. So I made the forage jacket, which is my first jacket out of the foliage. So I bought years ago, Joanne had this massive, massive sale on floral, like fabric flowers. And I bought all these flowers. And of course, like if you buy a rose, then it has a couple of leaves with it. So I separated them all and put all the flowers in. Like I'm going to make a pale pink one. I've made an apricot one. I've made a yellow one. But I also had all these foliage left. And you could use foliage and flowers together, but I don't know, they just don't look good to me. So I was like, I'll keep them and I'll do something with them. So that's how I ended up making the forage jacket. But then earlier this week, I follow Royal Botanic Gardens of Edinburgh on Instagram, and they posted these absolutely gorgeous autumn leaves from this tropical plant. And there's this dress by Jean-Paul Gaultier from a few years ago that I absolutely love. And while I really, really like the first foliage jacket that I did, it didn't really capture the essence of that Jean-Paul Gaultier jacket. So I was like, I'll do a tropical one, and that can be my Edinburgh jacket. Because at the start of the year, my Make 9, I decided I'd do 9 jackets and they'd all have a theme, and whatever the theme was, it had to be something randomly inspired by that. So one of them is the Edinburgh jacket. Like there's a Paris. My 3 favorite cities are Paris, New York City, and Edinburgh. So yeah, and the Edinburgh Botanic Gardens, I used to go there it was in a different part of the town from where I lived in Old Town, and it's over past Newtown. And it's absolutely gorgeous. But I used to go there pretty much every weekend because it's just lovely, the Botanic Gardens. And they have this massive, massive wrought iron glass house. There's actually a series of them, but the biggest one is the palm house, and it has actual giant palm trees in it. And they've been renovating it for the past few years, and it's going to open again at the start of next year, and they're just starting to put all the plants back in. And each week on a Thursday, usually, they do this Instagram live and you can just watch it later, and they just take you around a different part of the Botanic Garden. So even if you no longer live in Edinburgh, or you can't get to the gardens, you can still get a little glimpse of it each week. And one of them recently was in one of the glass houses, looking at all the ferns. And so I guess that's why it was on my mind. But they also, as I said, have those gorgeous plants with tropical leaves in them. So I had tried so that's why I'm doing this one as my Edinburgh jacket. And I had tried to use these particular tropical leaves that are sort of pinkish and dark green. I had tried to use them once before, and it didn't work. So I made the base jacket as a sample for I think it's a Butterick pattern or a Simplicity pattern. I didn't really like the actual jacket, and I was like, doesn't matter, I'll use it as a base and you won't even see the jacket. But the more stuff I put on it, the less I liked it. And as I said, I don't think leaves and flowers work well in a jacket. Perhaps it's because I've got such a small frame. Like my actual bones are very small. So the jackets are never, I think if you're a regular size or you've got broad shoulders, then you can just sort of put everything in a flower jacket and it'll look fine. But when you're working on one that's such a small size, then I think you have to sort of be very careful with it. So I carefully took all the red and magenta and hot pink flowers off, and I ended up putting them on one of the red faux leather jackets, and I really, really like the way that one turned out. It was pretty fabulous. But so I used up the flowers, but I still had these tropical leaves. And this is me showing you I've got separate videos on how I made the jacket with all the flowers. But yeah, so I had all the tropical leaves left over, plus that single different coloured tropical leaf on the front was from Joanne's plant that I bought from that Joanne's mega sale years and years ago. So yeah, I've used some of the other leaves like that in the yellow flower jacket that you see at the start when I do it's perfect, 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 perfect. You know, that little clip at the start, the intro. Yeah, I had one of those left over. There's a couple of more leaves that look like that, but I'm using them in the jacket that is going to have the dark blue and the purple flowers on it. I've got these really beautiful iris and lysianthus. They're gorgeous. Anyway, so back to this one. I put down the tropical leaves first, and then I added some fern, and oh my gosh, the jacket is just looking so scraggly and hideous at the moment, but you just got to have faith. Sometimes you've just got to have faith and just keep going, even though something looks incredibly ugly. So yes, that's what I did. And everything is sort of just stitched on. I just put something in place. Like when I first started doing floral jackets, I carefully pinned everything on and then started stitching down once everything was in place. But you just basically stab yourself with pins when you do that. So for the forage jacket and now for this one, what I've just been doing is I sort of trust myself with the design and the balance of everything more. And I just sort of have an idea in my head of what it should look like. And I gather enough ingredients that they should be able to cover the entire jacket. And then I sort of just stitch one on at a time. Like I just hold it in place, stitch it on with the needle has 2 bits of thread through it and doubled over, so it's 4 bits of thread, so it's nice and secure. And then I just, as I said, the big tropical leaves first, then you do the medium-sized things, and then you sprinkle the small ones over the top. So that is what I'm doing. And I think the geranium leaves, like with the red ring around them, I just think they look so good. And the back, I think if I have my time again, I might do a smaller design feature because I had to work around, like not as small as that one, sort of halfway in between maybe. But as I said, I loved the red sequins, so I decided that I would do red sequins on this other one as well. But I think if I'd done a smaller design feature on this foliage jacket that I'm working on at the moment, then it would have given me more room to do the foliage, which would have allowed me to do a more natural looking placement around it. Whereas because the design feature is so big, every leaf around, like I actually had to move the pink and green ones to the edge more, and you can see the bits of fern at the top. They're not natural, they're in a curved shape to match the neckline. And so I love the way the front is so natural and wild looking. I mean, it's not wild. I literally had to stitch every single one in place where it is. So it's very manicured and very deliberate, but I think it looks quite wild. And this is me just building up the sleeves, because the sleeve, whoopsie, turning the mannequin while holding the camera with the other hand is always quite interesting. This is me showing you the back. So the back is relatively clean. It is incredibly difficult to stitch on each sort of twig and each leaf. So if you ever get your threads knotted, just cut the thread out, put the whatever you're working on down, and go and have a coffee and just start again, because you can't have any messy threads. The jacket won't age well. Everything on the back of the work has to be nice and clean and flat. You will, like, once I finish the outer jacket, then I make a lining and I hand stitch that in. So the whole of the back of the work will be protected, but you still want it to be nice, always want it to be as flat and as the stitches as clean as possible. So yeah, I did get my thread tangled a couple of times, but as I said, I just cut it out and I start again. These things happen. So, this is me deciding, because when you make a foliage jacket, or when I make one, I have to use so many structural layers. Like, there's so many layers of netting that the actual jacket is a little bit stiff. And because the foliage isn't actually very heavy, there's not enough weight. You do need all that structure to be able to carry the weird branch and twig shapes. So you do need to have such a bulky, structurally sound jacket. And then to be able to stitch everything on. But once you've stitched it all on, it's not heavy enough. So you have to add some beads so that it sort of weighs it down and the jacket sits on you correctly. So yeah, I'm not sure if you can tell because the mannequin is kind of the wrong size, but the first foliage jacket that I did has loads of glass pearls on it, and it just makes the jacket sit on the mannequin or the body really well. So now it is time to add beads to this one. And I was going to use these green bugle beads. They're sort of a dark emerald colour and they're twisty and they're absolutely gorgeous. But I held them up to it and they just did not work with this. They're two different greens. This one is sort of more olive and more tropical. It's not dark emerald green. The dark emerald green beads looked cartoonish next to this. This one looks really wild and natural. So I decided, because a lot of the leaves have a sort of maroony colour in there, it's just got a sort of reddy purplishness to it. So I decided to get out my brown beads and my really, really dark red beads and sort of antique gold beads and see which ones would sort of match it. But obviously I still had to finish the leaves first. But at this point I was working on finishing it, but I was sort of thinking about what sort of beads I would put over the top. So yeah, there's still quite a bit to go for the shoulders. You really have to, add quite a lot of leaves over the shoulders. I'm so glad I'm working on the short sleeve jackets rather than a long sleeve. I know some of you really, really don't like short sleeve jackets, but I mean, I've got over 100 long sleeve jackets. I'm not sure how many long sleeve jackets anyone needs. And also doing a floral jacket on, like, stitching the flowers onto the sleeves, it just takes so much, because like if you've ever made a jacket or any top, you know that the sleeves just have so much surface area. They've got to wrap around your entire arm. And so they're very cylindrical, and it's just really difficult to embellish. Like if you're doing beading, you have to put more beads per inch on the sleeves than you do on the torso, because the torso is relatively flat. Like it goes around your body, but your body is so much bigger than your arm, so that it appears relatively flat, whereas your arm is very much just a little cylinder. And so you have to cover there just has to be so much more beading, or so much more, in this case, leaves per inch than on the actual torso of the jacket. It's super complicated. And then you don't want too much under the arms, because your arm needs to be able to rest beside your side, and you don't want the you want to be able to actually wear it. So anyway, it's really complicated, and it's way easier to do a short sleeve jacket. Plus, I've got so many long sleeve jackets, I feel like I should have some short sleeve ones as well. And yeah, so this is me gradually filling in the back. And as I said, I feel like the back seems more manicured. And so I was a little bit disappointed with that. But it's just such a tight space. There was really nothing else you could do. Like, the leaves are all the same size on the front, on the arms, on the back. So, and it was just really difficult to do. I'll get better. Like, I've got enough leaves to do another one, and I've got some strawberries left over, so I'm kind of thinking about doing just a foliage jacket with some random strawberries hanging off it. I think that would be rather entertaining. But I also really like the idea of doing a foliage jacket that's got icicle lights underneath, so it kind of looks like fireflies when you turn it on. Oh, and this is me pointing out that I did think about doing, I really, really like this one, and I wanted to do the sequins again. I did think about using up some of the beads in the jar of that I'm using on the cherry mosaic, but I decided to use the red sequins. But this time I used colourful beads on the top. So it's this sort of dark pink, magenta and red. And I've half done the design feature on the back, but I'm taking a break. And so I pulled all the beads that I showed you before, all these sort of brown tone ones. They were threaded together with some threads, so I had to cut the thread out and carefully put them into a box. So they're ready to go. I end up not using them, but I was really tempted, because I was going through my boxes of beads and I came across some leftover beads from the Edinburgh Chanel jacket. And I was like, oh, all my Edinburgh themed jackets could have the same sort of beading on them. So they're like brown, woody coloured beads. They're glass and plastic. I don't really have any wooded beads, but they sort of look like wood. So I was really tempted to use them, but yeah, I decided against it in the end. So here it is. The design feature on the back is finished. I finished it at night, and I tried to photograph it just so you could see how sparkly and gorgeous it is. And I absolutely love it. But now that I sort of see it, I think people are going to think it was done with a machine or something, because it's a little too perfect. So I'm not sure what I could do about that. But yeah, I love it. I think when I did the watermelons, what I did was the bottom, it's like a stack of sequin, seed bead, sequin, seed bead. And when I did the watermelons, I did the bottom sequin is flat, and the top one, every second one, the sequin is flat, and then the ones in between, I folded the sequin. So maybe next time I do a design feature using red sequins, I'll use that method instead of this one where all the sequins are flat. But yeah, I think it looks really, really amazing. It's not perfect, but I think it just sort of looks a little too perfect, if you get what I mean. Like, I can see the imperfections and I like it, but I think, just generally speaking, sometimes some things look a little too perfect, and people just come up to me and endlessly say, wow, like they're just convinced it's done by a machine. I was like, but apparently people think their clothes are made by machines, not by people. There is a sewing machine involved, but yeah. I think it would be easier to make an automated self-driving car than to make an automated self-driving sewing machine. I just can't see that ever happening. Anyway, so yeah, I started doing the beads, and in my opinion, these beads, they look so much like vanilla pods. Now, I know that vanilla pods aren't particularly glamorous, but I think when I went to the Botanic Gardens once, they had a coffee bean tree, and there was like a little mini exhibition, or information on how it grows in the wild and how it differs in captivity, sort of thing. So it's not, I've never seen vanilla pods in a glass house or anything, but it's kind of, I don't know, kind of felt the same vibe to me. And as I said, my inspo picks were that Jean-Paul Gaultier dress and the tropical leaves from the glass house in Edinburgh. And I don't know, I just think these beads sort of matched for me, and they're glass beads, so 6mm glass beads, and then in between there's sort of a brown and earthy, dark, purpley red-ish. And in between I used brown and antique gold seed beads, as well as these mauvey grey ones with a metallic antique gold finish. So yeah, I just thought, I don't know, somehow it just works for me. They are very dark, and they do darken the jackets, which I think some people will really not like. But considering it differentiates itself so much from the other jacket that I made, when basically they're both short sleeve jackets, they're both made from fabric leaves, and they've both got beads in them. So I guess you could say they're, in some ways, they're incredibly similar, but I don't know, I think both look very unique, and I'm really happy with the way that they turned out. And in my opinion, it does need all the beading, because there's so much structure to the jacket. For it to sit properly on the body, it needs the weight of all that beading. But it's funny, because these beads, I originally beaded them into clusters, like little bugs of beads, and I was going to stitch them on that way, so it would have the same amount of weight, but it would look like little berries were dotted in amongst the foliage. And I ended up pulling the bead bugs apart and stringing them down so that they look like these vanilla pods. And yeah, I really like it. Again, I think the back looks more manicured than the front. I think the front looks much more wild and natural, and the sleeves do too. But yeah, I think if I just made the design feature a little bit smaller, it would have been a bit easier to work around. But also, I think it's just a really, really technically demanding design, and I need to just be better before I could do something that's natural as natural on the back as it is on the front. When I did the beading, I could have hung some down over the design feature, and I was tempted, and I'm not sure if you can tell, but I did add a little bit of vine, and it does sort of obscure the design feature a tiny bit, but I really, really wanted the design feature to have pride of place, and I thought hanging stuff down over it, I don't know, I preferred it. I like it the way it is. I think in future I might do ones where the foliage overgrows, like sort of hangs over, and as the body moves, you can sort of catch a glimpse of it. But at the moment, I felt like it was really important that it's just super prominent. So yes, and I think at this point, so I did one side, I divided all the beads into 4 lots, and so left front, right front, back left, back right. And because it's the design feature, obviously it means there's less surface area. So I do think the back is a little bit darker. And I think it's just because I've used the exact amount of beads on the front as I have on the back. And there's a little bit less surface area. So, and yeah. So, I mean, it's a little weird, but I don't know. As I said, I really like the way that it turned out. So, yeah. Once I'd used up all those beads, I decided that I did want to use some of those smaller beads just around the neckline. And I did try them on this side here, but they just, I don't know, they didn't work. They just didn't look right. So I carefully ended up cutting them out again. I do have some small 4mm diamond-shaped beads. They're cut glass and they're really sparkly. So I don't know, I've sort of left it plain. Well, I'm not sure plain's the right word, but I've left it with just that one type of beading in there for the time being. So the original forage jacket that I made, the one on the left, that has one type of beading over the whole of the jacket, and then around the neckline, all around the neckline, there's a different second type of beading with just smaller beads. After I'd used up all the glass pearls, I did additional beading around the neckline that's different than the main type of beading. And see here, I sort of tried to do that with this one, but it didn't work because I sort of mixed all different types of beads in. I think if I just used those brown woody looking ceramic ones, that might have been interesting, but this didn't work. So I'm going to leave it for now because I just did such a phenomenal amount of work this week on this jacket to get it done. I was like, when I started, I was like, there's absolutely no way I can get this done. But it was just so fun and so challenging to work on that I just kept working and working and working on it. And yeah, it's incredible. Sometimes I make something and I'm like, I did that. So this is me showing you the two jackets next to each other, and I've swapped the mannequins so that you can sort of see, because I think the first foliage jacket, the forage one in particular, it really needs the shoulders of the me mannequin. So the mannequin on the right is much more my size, whereas the one on the left it's just the top half of a dress mannequin, and it doesn't really have any shoulders to speak of. So sometimes jackets don't sit very well on it, but the one that I just made, I added so many leaves to the shoulders that it actually sits quite well on that one. And this is they're supposed to look like wild berries, those red beads. And I was going to use them on the Australia jacket, but I ended up using them as berries on the forage jacket. And this one, I am just so mesmerized by all these sequins. I kind of want to do a whole jacket next year. I think I'm going to do, one of my Make 9 jackets is going to be a sequin jacket where the entire jacket is just sequins. I've got some sort of dark pink magenta sequins. I've got red. I've got a couple of different greens. So I think I might do a watermelon jacket where like the bottom part of the jacket is different greens, and then it goes up into reds and pinks with some black seeds on it. So it sort of looks like a watermelon, maybe. I'm not sure. But I do really like or I might just do a whole bunch of all mixed sequins. I really like the idea of making an entire jacket just out of, like, handmade out of sequins, not using fabric that's got sequins on it. Anyway, so that's it. It's ridiculous to say that's all I did this week because I worked on 2 other jackets and I made this one from start to finish. Well, I had the base jacket made, and which actually, so now of those six jackets that I made months ago, 5 of them have been beaded. Maybe that's what I'll do next episode. I'll take a break from doing all this beading and making and things. I might make a skirt because I kind of want to make some skirts. Or I might get out all the jackets that I've done and look at the 5, like I've done out of the 6 jackets, 2 dark green and 4 red faux leather. I've beaded 3 out of 4 of the red ones, and I've beaded 2 out of 2 of the dark green ones. So I might get them out and see what there is left to do. I might make the skirt, but also I might do an update on my Make 9s. It's weird, this episode, because it's according to YouTube Studio, which is the bit of YouTube that you get if you have a channel. I've had this channel for 4 years today. So I don't know. I was going to do an episode when podcasters and YouTubers have the anniversary of when they started. They usually do a special episode, like answer questions or talk about themselves or something like that. But I feel like I pretty much talk about myself every episode anyway. And yeah, so I was going to do that, but I didn't end up. I kind of got stuck into making this fabulous jacket. And yeah, now I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I've still got to KonMari everything, all my beads, and I might get out my cottons because I kind of want to make my layer cake dresses. Well, I want to make a layer cake skirt because last September I made one and it's got sushi in it. It's absolutely adorable. It's got all these florals plus this novelty print which has sushi in it because it was based on this movie and Meg Ryan goes, sushi. So when I saw that print, I was like, oh, I could do that with it. So, it's still hanging on the rack. And I was going through my cottons and I was like, oh, I could make another skirt. That one's fabulous. So I might, do a KonMari of all my cotton fabrics because I've kind of mushed them all together. Some of them I definitely want to make a jackets out of so that I can bead them, but some of them I've bought cuts that are like 3 or 4 yards long, so there's enough to make a little bolero plus a matching vintage dress. So I think I'll divide, and then I've got other fabrics which I just want to use to make dresses, plus I've got loads of scraps which I want to use to make patchwork. So I think I'll get all of it out and just work out what on earth I'm going to do with all that fabric. I have so much fabric. I've got years worth. I think I was listening to a podcast and they said that ideally the collection of fabric that you have, you should be able to use up in 1 year. That's how much your stash or your collection should contain. So if you do a lot, then your collection should have a lot in it. But if you don't make many things, then you should aim to have a much smaller collection. I think I don't know. I think you shouldn't judge yourself by other people's standards. Like there are people who have, multiple yachts and multiple private jets. I think having a fabric collection is not that extravagant. But then I'm also, obviously, I don't make pieces that are practical. I just feel like a hobby is a hobby. It's not like you're not being an unpaid fast fashion worker. I don't understand this obsession with making knits and like making your own t-shirts and making your own leggings. Like I have a few t-shirts and I have a few pairs of leggings, and when they are getting a bit ratty old, I go and buy some more. I just feel like no one has enough sewing time. We all want more sewing time than we have. And like, I would rather invest that time as my hobby time, I'd rather invest it in making things that I could absolutely never afford to buy. I don't know why you want to use your free time to, instead of going golfing or, playing with your vintage car collection, you want to make leggings. I don't get it. But each to their own. But obviously, I just like really impractical things like making a collection of foliage jackets. But yeah, I guess whatever makes you happy. But I don't think we should stress about how many pieces of fabric we have in our fabric collection. But I do think that my bead collection and my fabric collection could be more organized. So I'm going to have like a box for all the felts, a box for all the lace fabrics, a box for all the faux leathers, and then a separate one for all the metallic fabrics. And I think that will be better so that I don't have to go through all the different storage boxes. There'll just be one storage box for whatever I want. And yeah, I think that will be much better than the current storage system that I have. So yeah, and with the cotton fabrics, I think I definitely need to divide them into ones for jackets, ones for dress with matching jackets, and then ones that are just play ones for that I'm going to make dresses and shirts and skirts out of. Yes, well, so I guess my next week's episode will be a KonMari of some of my fabrics. Anyway, my voice is completely dying, so I think that will be it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you've been inspired to make a completely impractical work of wearable art for yourself. It was really fun. Thanks again for watching, and happy sewing and dreaming and making.